Greetings, family, and welcome to the Art of Rising. You already know we're all about rising the energy, rising the vibration, and helping you and giving you some of the codes. And we're always on the lookout for great guests on the show. And we have an outstanding gentleman here, incredible man. He's an author and a hypnotist, a veteran, a former intelligence officer, also, and he focuses on peak mental performance and ending internal conflicts and suffering. His personal journey of overcoming depression and suicidal ideations, as well as his struggle with autism and Asperger's syndrome and bipolar disorder, man. So he's got a lot on his plate, but it seems like he's overcome these things, right? And he continues on that journey. And that's the most important part here. So please, brother, introduce yourself. Tell us where you live in and what are you doing with yourself these days?
Man, there's not much I can add to that whole stack right there. You did a phenomenal job. Grew up in Kansas and spent quite a bit of time there. Bounced around a little bit, Hawaii for a little while. I was in DC for about 17 years. I've been calling Austin, Texas my home for about 3.5, coming up on 4 years now. I've been working as a hypnotist for 5 years and been loving every minute of it.
Amazing. I know everything's big in Texas, right? Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, and it's hot too. I know the weather's really nice over there. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
So take us back like from the beginning. You said you're from Kansas, you were coming up, and I know there were some struggles. We were talking offline about some of those things. So tell us a little bit about that, brother.
Well, yeah. So, born in Alabama, moved to Texas, moved back to Kansas. My folks are from there, grew up in a small town in Kansas when I was like 1 or 2 years old. So that's pretty much all I ever really knew. But as you can imagine, I've got ADHD, I've got bipolar disorder, I got the autism Asperger's thing going on, got an IQ of 145. I'm growing up in Kansas in the 70s, 80s, and it's very, very clear, absolutely undeniable that one of these things is not like the others. This does not fit in that environment at all. Not really. Right. And I'm growing up in the biggest town in Kansas, but even Wichita is only like 330,000 people, is not big. Right. And, pre-internet, all that kind of thing. And so I know with absolute certainty that the world works just fine for everybody else. Everybody else is able to navigate that fine, make friends, get what they need, all that kind of stuff. And I cannot. Just does not flat out work with me. Right. So when you're in that kind of situation and you don't know what's wrong and you can't figure it out and nobody else seems to be able to help you, I knew with absolute certainty very early on, there's no way I was ever going to get what I wanted to need. It's just not possible. Right. Everybody else can, but not me. And so the first time I wanted to kill myself was 9 years old, because I knew I was going to suffer forever, but I had to decide how long that was, and there's power in that. There's agency in that, and when that happens, you got to find a reason to keep on going, reason to keep living. Right. And so, I've been reading a lot of science fiction, fantasy, military fiction back then. The idea of heroic sacrifice was always a really big one in my life, And so it's like, okay, well, if I'm never going to get what I need a reason to keep going, then if I'm in service to that greater good, then it's a reason for me to be around, right? So I was like, all right, fine, I'll become Batman, right? Batman's life sucks. Batman's life sucks,
right?
Right, but it's a real good thing he's around. Gotham City would be much worse off if he wasn't, right?
Right.
So like, okay, fine, I've got purpose. I got meaning. There's something to do, right?
No superpowers either, right?
Yeah, exactly. He just gets his butt kicked over and over. Exactly. But again, it's his intellect, same kind of thing for me. That's my superpowers, my capacity to figure things out. But that's what led me down the road of, joining the Marine Corps, Air National Guard, going into the intelligence thing, doing counterterrorism, counterproliferation in DC. That worked for a very long time. But 2019, 2020, I'm realizing, the world does not want to be saved. So I'm clearly in the wrong line of business. And that's a problem because my reason for living, my reason for existing no longer works. Right. So that's when I really started doing a lot of the work on myself to figure out a way to actually get what I need in life, because I was done suffering. If I can't make that work, if I can't get what I need, then I'm out. I'm done,
Right.
And, knew with absolute certainty, it's like, you can't make me suffer any longer than I choose to. Right. So did pretty much everything under the sun between like 2019 and 2023 to kind of fix myself, did the therapy and the cognitive behavioral therapy and like the spiritual retreats. I did ISTA, I did energy healing, I did somatic work, I did breath work, I did psychedelics, I did hypnosis, right? And everything moves the needle. Everything creates space, right? But none of it really fixes you. And that's a problem because I'm autistic and I can't lie to myself and I can't pretend that better equals fixed. And if I can't get across the finish line. If I can't find a way across that thing and be fixed, then I can't get what I need and I'm out. So it's basically figure out how to fix myself, figure out how to create that finish line, get across it, or, be quite blunt, just put a bullet in my head. And so, all right, fair enough. The way I've navigated the world is basically reverse engineer everything, right? If there's a pattern of behavior, there's something that drives it, right? And since none of y'all tell me how the rules work, and that's not the game you play, it's like, here's your employee manual, check that thing in the trash. It's like, Bob, show me what's really going on, right? So there's explicit rules y'all tell me, and then there's how you guys actually play the game. So I basically just have to say, okay, here's the patterns, here's what's happening. Great. What drives that? Right? What are the beliefs? What are the assumptions? Whatever that is. Because if I can understand those, then I can figure out how to navigate that. I can predict stuff, right? So I did the same thing with all these different modalities and techniques. It's like, okay, what are the underlying assumptions? How do they work? That tells me what the left and right limits are. That tells me what they can do and not do. That tells me why they're not giving me the results they're giving me. Awesome. And shows me where I need to go. Which led me down to the hypnosis path really, really deeply, right? Because the way I look at the mind, I talk about this in my book, you've got sort of like conscious, rational, emotional, and instinctive layers of your mind, right? Got a lot of tools to play on that conscious and rational level, a lot of them, right? You got your like energetic body, emotional body, a lot of stuff you can play with down there. Physical body, your neurochemistry, lots of tools to play there. But on that emotional and instinctive levels of your mind, we don't really have a lot of good tools, right? Got some stuff to release stuff, but not really a lot of stuff to play down there. Psychedelics, hypnosis, pretty much it. Psychedelics are beautiful. Definitely a big part of my journey. Got a tattoo on my chest that says I am alive. After that first psychedelic retreat I went to, I'm sitting there going like, man, life is amazing. I can't wait to create something awesome for myself. So excited and realize, oh shoot, that's the first time I've actually believed that in my entire life. First time in my life that like it's actually worth living. That was a pretty heavy moment. God, I must have cried for like half an hour after that. But it meant that there was a solution. It meant that it was possible. All I had to do was keep digging, right? But as beautiful as psychedelics are, it's fundamentally generative, right? And generative is kind of like creating new things, restorative, fixing old stuff. And so with psychedelics, giving a lot of awareness, breaking a lot of those old kind of misunderstandings you have about what's going on, creating a lot of new potential, a lot of opening, a lot of space to do things, right? But you don't get to choose what you're going after down there. It's taking you on whatever ride it chooses. And number two, there's very big limits on what you can change down there while you're in there. Right.
Yeah.
So,
Yes. I noticed that a lot of them work like, because that's similar to my story too. Ryan, I was a train wreck walking, man. I was smashing everything in my way, like my relationships, my finances, my health, man. And then I thought I was the smartest guy in the room. I was like, well, what's going on? Like, I'm cool, but what's wrong with everybody? And then once I wanted to get off of the ride, I didn't know who was driving it. I didn't know where I paid my ticket. Why can't I get off of this? Like I did many things. And then I ended up finding some ancient medicine, and we flew down to the Amazon and we experienced the medicine. And then, it was like wonderful at first, like, wow, this is great. And then it was like, hey, that's not the silver bullet that kills the werewolf. I thought it was the 6-minute abs. Like
yes,
all it did, Ryan, was like it just lifted many things more up, and I ended up like in a room filled with mirrors everywhere, ceiling, floor, and I was just facing myself, man. So
Tell
me a little bit about that.
So for me, like me and medicine, that's an interesting ride. Every single time, it's just like the first time I took MDMA, I had a full-on Kundalini awakening. First time I took psilocybin, cracked open my third eye, and like that was my first psychedelic retreat. I'm like, what are you people doing to me? Like, I came here to get better at business and entrepreneurship. What the hell is this? What the hell are you people doing? Right. But it set me on the most beautiful path. And it's like one of those things where it's like, oh, you're ready to actually step into your stuff? Cool. Here's where you're actually going. It's like, son of a gun. It's like, dang it. Yeah. And like that was never a space I used to play in. Never a place I wanted to even really try to play in. Right. So it's like, okay, cool. I had full on Kundalini awakening. So I guess I need to figure out what a chakra is, right? Do all the work
that might help. That right.
Yep. It would be very helpful, right? When all that energy's like going everywhere and you're just stuff's a mess, So that was a process, but like, it did show me so many beautiful things, and like the DMT ceremony I did, just like, my friend was like, what would you like to work on? It's like, well, I want to work on my connection to the divine. Grew up Catholic, always believed in a higher power, but autistic. Faith is really freaking hard for me, especially growing up in the 80s. And so when you got that whole culture war going on, like, this is not how that works, right? But I looked around the world, looked at all these different faiths and religions, like, well, none of this stuff is it, right? So essentially had the experience of dying, blasting off, and then ceasing to exist. Right. And then coming back. I remember coming back, I'm on my knees, curled up in a ball. I am laughing hysterically. Cannot stop laughing. And the knowing that I have is like essentially like, it's like, oh, you want to work on your connection to find? How about you just like go hang out with the big guy for a while? Check, right? I brought back an answer. And I kept on saying over and over, like, it's all so simple. It's all so simple. It's all so simple. Because when you get it, it really is. Right. And that's guided the development of everything I've done ever since then. And like, man, the simplicity that things get down to when you really kind of get it is scary. It's frightening how simple. It's frightening how simple it is. And it's like, how the heck have we missed this for so many years? Right?
Yeah. We live in this world where they're telling us like it's not simple. Like this is good. You're not white enough. You're not black enough. You're not tall enough. You're not short enough. You're not fat enough.
Let me. Okay, so psychedelics give you a bunch of stuff, but all the work you're doing after that is like, now that you have all this understanding, how do I make choices in light of this new understanding, right? So it's all a conscious process. So the difficulty is you haven't actually shifted or changed anything down there. So that part of your mind is still running on all those old programs and all those old assumptions. You just have better awareness of it, right? So the beautiful thing about hypnosis is I get to open that door, go down there, and stay down there as long as I need to. And I get to go after what I want to, right? And again, I spent 23 years in intelligence community, which is all about finding out things that people don't want me to know. And every answer I need is in the back of your head. So all I got to do is ask the right questions, right? And so the simplicity of all this comes down to a couple of very, very, very simple things, right? Number one, the right side of your brain, your unconscious mind, the emotional part of your mind, doesn't care about individual patterns, doesn't care about details, doesn't care about individual events. That thing that happened when you were 6, doesn't matter. It really doesn't. Because it's looking at patterns over time. It's looking at narratives run through things. So no individual event matters. It saw a pattern emerge, said, okay, what does this mean about who I am and how does the world work, how the world works? And based on who I am and how the world works determines how I need to move through the world to survive and get what I need, right? But it's identifying these patterns really, really young. And up until you're about 4 or 5, 6 years old, your rational side of your brain, that left brain, not really online, not really sophisticated, doesn't have a particularly sophisticated understanding of the world. So you're drawing very simplistic conclusions, right? Great. You're 3, 4, 5 years old. You're growing up in a poor neighborhood, right? And you just cannot get what you need. So you assume, oh, well, if I can't get what I need, if it's not there for me, well, I must not deserve it. And if I don't deserve it, that means I'm not good enough. Because if I was worthy, I'd deserve it. Therefore, I'm not worthy. Great. So what's wrong with me that I don't deserve it? What's wrong with me that I'm not good enough? Right? Has to be something wrong with me. So then the left side of your brain goes, okay, well, if there's something wrong with me, I need to figure out what the thing is that's wrong with me so I can fix it, so I can be good enough, so I can deserve. And it starts looking for things that might be wrong. Oh, teacher says I'm too stupid. Okay, great. That must be it. Right. Oh, I'm black. That must be it. Right. Oh, I'm not, I'm whatever it happens to be. Or, like for me, it's like, I'm different. That must be it. Right? And for me, it really kind of was. But like for a lot of people, it's not. Like I have one client, just matured really young. So she was like, 5'9", 6 foot tall in like 6th grade, 7th grade. So you get like, 6 feet, 6 inches a foot taller than everybody. Say, oh, that must be wrong. Right. The second thing is that your mind, one of the biggest things your mind does is try to protect you from emotional pain. Okay. So what happens is when you're growing up in a situation where there's a lot of negative emotion, you don't have control of your environment, which means you can't really escape it. It becomes chronic. Right. And if you're not getting the support to deal with it, it loads up really, really heavy, really, really fast. Like I said, I wanted to be gone by 9 years old. I had a client of mine who actually attempted to end his life at 8. I had clients that have given up on life as early as 4. Right. This stuff adds up fast. Right. So what does that mean? It means that at that point, your emotions have become a threat to your physical existence.
Yes,
So now you're,
see that. I see
yeah.
that. I see that now. You're opening up all kinds of things because I can remember
Mhm.
when I was young too, telling my old man, like I must have been about, I don't know, 7 or 8, and I just said I
Mhm.
wanted to end it all,
Yeah.
and then I remember him crying. It was the first time I had ever seen him cry before, and it
Yeah.
was tough. There was some abuses that were going on there
Sure.
too, you see, and then my mind was saying like, hey, I'm not good enough, and I'm not worthy enough, and
I want to stick
Bruce.
around.
Bruce Lipton, if you know who he is, he's big on
Mhm.
that too. Talks about, the subconscious, that is that
Mhm.
record that's playing in the back of your mind, but it's been playing
Mhm.
there so long that you don't even know it's playing. It's like when you go to the
Yeah.
fish and you ask him about the water, the fish goes, "What water? What are you
Exactly.
talking about?" But we have to
Yeah.
realize that, and that's where it opens things up, and then we have to go there to
Mhm.
those dark spots, like and get to that record, and do
Yeah.
the remix,
Yep.
and put on
Exactly.
the
Now,
other record.
yeah, yeah. Now here's the tricky part of that. Okay. When we're doing that, what are we usually doing? We're looking at individual traumas. Oh, the abuse. Oh, the poorness. Right. It saw a pattern, not about individual things. The individual things we're looking at are the things we think on the left side brain, detail oriented, are the things. Trees versus forest.
Mm,
Right. Looking at trees rather than forest. Emotional mind, unconscious mind is looking at the forest level view, not the trees. The trees don't matter. Individual trees don't matter. Big clumps of trees don't matter. Right.
mm,
And the worst part is you can't go from the tree level to the forest level. You can map out Times Square in excruciating detail, and it tells you absolutely nothing about what New York looks from the air.
mm,
Right. But the problem
mm,
is because we're rational people, we can actually map out, oh, this thing, I got abused. Therefore, that means this, which means this, which means this. So no wonder I'm not good enough.
mm,
And the problem is, since you proved it every step of the way, it's really hard to realize you're wrong.
mm, mm, mm.
Right.
Just,
But it's using fundamentally different tools from a fundamentally different perspective
mm,
to draw
mm,
fundamentally different conclusions.
mhm, mhm.
So you can't go from here to here. It just does not work.
I see. I see. So
Does not work.
it seems like on your journey you've come quite a ways.
Mm-hmm.
You've been able to pick up some tools along the way, which I'd love to
Mm-hmm.
talk about also.
Yep.
But in addition to that, here you are now sharing this information with the
Mm-hmm.
world and helping people, and you've even you eventually created your own unique set of techniques,
Yep.
right? So
100%.
so why don't you tell us about that? Somebody comes to you like, oh
Sure.
man, life is just giving me the shit end of the stick, man.
Yes.
I'm
Yes.
out or in. I don't even know. What do you
Yep.
how do you work with them?
100%. So assume you got one of these like Batman origin story childhoods, right? We end up in one of two spots because we end up in one of two traps. Okay. Either we end up in the cage or the treadmill. Talk about this in my book. All right. Up until about high school, you have like zero agency. Nothing you can do to shift things, nothing you can do to change your circumstances. All once you hit high school, now you got some options. You get doing more stuff. And after high school, moving on to college, got free choice of your life, right? So that environment up till 12 years old, everybody's stuck. But what happens after that, once you get in high school, is really important. Kind of determines which path you go on. All right. Some of us have a talent, have a skill, have something that lets us kind of escape that environment, right? For me, academics, my intelligence, right? For some people, it's athletics. Some people become entrepreneurs, whatever that happens to be. There's a talent, there's a skill, there's something, right? Some people just run away and join the Marine Corps. Did that too, right? Get the military. But something gets you out, right? It's something you're good at, something you enjoy doing. Getting a lot of rewards for it, right? Money, fame, everybody's telling you how awesome you are, right? So now you're in this very, very interesting trap, which is very, very sneaky, okay? Because you got a carrot you're chasing, right? Getting all these rewards, right? But if you ever take your foot off the gas, them demons catch up, don't they? Chase the carrot or you get the stick, right? If you try to do anything else, guess what happens? You get the stick, right? So you're stuck on that treadmill. And that goalpost keeps on moving, doesn't it? Oh, I'm successful. Great. I've got 5 million. Great. But that guy's got 10. I guess I'm not there yet. Got to keep running. Right. Which means what you do. And if you don't have the option to freely say no, to step off that freely, then what you're doing is not a choice. It's a compulsion. right? And you've seen that with a lot of these really successful people where they just simply cannot stop, and the rest of their life is a mess. They got one part of their life that works and nothing else does. If you don't have that, if for whatever reason you don't have that talent, that skill, whatever, to get yourself out of that situation, then you end up in the cage, right? Lights are on, food's on the table, roof over your head, things are okay. But everything that really makes life worth living is outside that cage. You're not allowed to go get it, right? And if you look at this from the perspective of your mind trying to keep you away from emotional pain, what's happening is getting out of that cage, taking that shot, really going for what you want. That's what you want. That's awesome. But if you take that shot and fail, it confirms all these negative opinions about yourself. It confirms I'm not good enough. I'm powerless. I'm weak. I can't do the thing. It's not available. I'm not worthy. And if it confirms that stuff for real, for good, down that hole you go. Maybe this time you don't get out. If you look at the treadmill, guys, you've been running forever, which means you have not built up the pain tolerance to deal with that stuff. Right. So as soon as you stop, that stuff catches up and you freak out. But what happens when the treadmill breaks? In the cage you go, because it doesn't have any other option, right? These guys get out of the military and they don't know what they do. Why? Because their treadmill busted. You see these professional athletes, career gets ended early because of an injury. Yeah, in the cage they go, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen some of them. I've seen some of them like homeless. How did you?
Yes.
What you was making? Wow.
Yeah, because their treadmill busted and they have nothing else and they just implode because their demons catch up and they just eat them alive.
Yeah, it's tough work. Tell us about some of the tools that you give to people to pull them up and out. So the frightening, terrifying, really uncomfortable thing is this is probably not something you can fix yourself. And this is why. All right. If you are at odds with yourself, if you've got that internal friction, if your mind is shaping your life to avoid that pain, that means at some point in time, you've become dangerous enough to yourself that it has to protect you from yourself, which means it don't trust you. It can't. So why is it going to let you change it? And all the changes you want to make are to let you do things that things are bad, wrong, or dangerous in some way. So why the heck is it going to let you change it? Right? Which is why a lot of this general stuff we do, what are we doing? We're creating clearings in the forest, cutting down a bunch of trees, right? Creating a bunch of space, right? A lot more freedom of action. Things are better, but you're still stuck in the middle of the forest. So the way I kind of like, there's an analogy I use. Okay, let's assume that consciousness is the CEO of a company, right? Unconscious mind is like your senior management on down. And they're all unionized. Can't fire them. Right? And they're on strike. And negotiations are broken down. So what do? You get a third-party negotiator to come in, right, and do that negotiation. And part of the reason it's broken down is you're not listening. It's telling you, man, you're not good enough. There's something wrong with you. You don't deserve. And that's the truth from that perspective. Right. We think there's one truth. There's what you think and what you feel. One of them has to be true when they conflict. No, you're looking at it from two different perspectives, through two different lenses. So you're going to come up with two different answers. But they're both correct. They're both the truth from that perspective with those tools, given the assumptions they have. Right? And so step number one, if there's a conflict, assume they're both true. And figure out what has to be true for that emotional conclusion to be correct instead of this one. Again, patterns over time. You're successful now. Have you been successful your entire life? You're strong and protect yourself now. Has that always been true? You're good enough in this way. Are you good enough in all the others? Do you measure up in all the others? Because when you take a step back and look at that forest perspective, you start realizing really quick, ooh, maybe not. That's a really uncomfortable conclusion. Because when you've got these ideas, I'm not good enough, what do? You try and create a way that you do. The reason why we're creating an ego and identity, we want to be an entrepreneur or a soldier or an athlete or whatever that is because we don't like who we are. So we got to be something different. So we kind of create a different you. And the idea that that's not me, that this other thing is true, was really difficult to accept. But so we get down there, we start asking questions like, all right, cool. Not letting yourself succeed in life. Fair enough. What problem are you trying to solve by doing this? How are you trying to help me?
right? Because fundamentally, every part of you is always trying to help you live the best possible life, given how it understands you and the world. So if the understanding has that it's weak, that you're weak, you can't protect yourself, it's going to move you through the world very differently than if you understand yourself as strong and resilient. But it's just trying to protect you and help you survive the world, given that you're weak and powerless, can't protect yourself. Right? So great. You think this stuff, that's the problem you're trying to solve. Great. Show me how you got to that conclusion. Show me the chain of logic that gets you to, I'm powerless, I'm weak, I can't protect myself. Because if I can see that, now I've got tools. Oh, sure. You got abused. You know, your uncle beat you back then. Fair enough. Cool. And so you think you're powerless and weak, can't protect yourself. Makes total sense, right? But here's the thing. Survival isn't about just fight and flight. There's also freeze and fawn. Most importantly, flop. See a couple guys scrapping in the schoolyard. Crowd gathers around. One of them starts to lose. What happens? Tries to run away. Obviously can't. So he hits the ground, curls up in a ball, protects his head and stomach, and he takes the beating. Because minimizing the harm is the best possible solution he has. Right? Can you stop your uncle from beating your butt, you know, just whooping the snot out of you when you're 6 years old? Absolutely not. But you're still breathing. So you did survive. So you found a way through. Right? If you look at like Gandhi or Martin Luther King, their superpower is just being able to take everything and throw at them, right?
Oh my goodness. Yeah. I mean, Gandhi is one of the stories I often tell. You know, here's a guy on 100%. The train and they kicked him in his ass and threw him off the train. And he was like,
yeah. And think about this. Just doing that, just enduring, just surviving. What they do, they brought empires to their knees, didn't they?
Yep.
Changed the course of history, right? Does that sound powerless and weak to you? No, clearly not. Strength, got to be strong and resilient to be able to do that, right?
Wow.
Got to be incredibly powerful in order to just like endure what can't be prevented, right?
That's right.
You're like, oh well, I took all these looks, got hurt really bad. Fair enough, cool. Look at Conor McGregor, Mike Tyson. These are guys that can protect themselves, strong as hell, fighters, brawlers, right? But even when they win, when they step out of that ring, they're broken and bloody. They got the snot kicked out of them, even when they win.
Right.
So maybe taking some hits doesn't mean you're weak.
Right. So I see what you doing in essence is like reframing, you know, some of those emotional pains and understanding the true nature of the emotions and showing them that, like, hey, you know, let's reframe this and look at it and let's at least look at it. Because that's what we do all day, right? Is just push things down with all day. We're just trying to get it down. Like, I don't want to see it. I don't want to.
Boom. And that's the thing is like you're taking the same event, the same thing. You're not changing anything about it. You did, in fact, get your butt whooped by your uncle. There's nothing you could do about it to prevent it. And does not mean you're powerless when you can't protect yourself. That means you're strong and resilient. You can take care of yourself. Same event, different conclusion because we're looking at it through a different lens because we have more sophisticated understanding of the world now so we can draw a different conclusion. So you do that with all those different elements of that story that created, I'm not good enough and there's something wrong with me and I can't deserve. And as soon as you do that, you go to, I am good enough. There's nothing wrong with me. I do deserve. Right. The ultimate place you get to, the place where I get all of my clients, is a very simple set of beliefs. There was nothing wrong with me and there never was. There is nothing to heal, and there never was.
That's powerful, super powerful. That's I can see where you're unlocking, you know, the true value of people.
We're not even there yet. We're not even there yet.
Make them deserve. Oh, you're not even there yet.
Not even there yet.
Go ahead.
When emotions are pain, gotta avoid them. Triggers all the survival circuits, right? Come from wounds, got to heal those caused by trauma. Got to fix that, right? But what you can do is you can reframe emotions from pain to questions. Where every negative emotion is just your mind saying, hey, I'm up against this kind of situation, this kind of challenge. I need your help navigate. I need your help to figure this out. Right? Well, if that's the case, then they don't come from wounds, do they? No, which means there's no wounds, which means there's nothing for you to heal. And they're not caused by trauma. Because when all these negative emotions and wounds are caused by trauma, that means that somebody did this to you. Somebody made you feel, which means you're not even sovereign over what happens in your head. means you're a victim forever because somebody can always push that button and make you feel. But if these are your mind saying, I need help solving a challenge, that's your interpretation of the world. Nobody else. No, this is just how I'm seeing it, which means trauma doesn't actually exist. It's just a situation where you're up against a challenge. You couldn't find a way to win. Your mind was screaming at you for help and you didn't have an answer. No more, no less. Right? So now, interesting. Don't have to avoid it anymore. You can engage with it and it helps you get what you need in life. So feeling bad becomes a good thing in a way.
The fuel. That's how humans are supposed to use it as fuel.
Yes. And a way the hardest part of solving any problem is figuring out what the problem actually is. So saying, I'm looking for this kind of problem, well, that narrows the field very fast. Makes it easier to find what the problem really is. Fix it and move on. Right? Next piece of that. When your hand hurts, you're supposed to look at your hand because that thing's busted. You need to fix it. Where do we feel emotions? We feel them in here. So where does the problem have to be? In here. This is the problem. No, facing a challenge out there. This isn't the problem. You're not supposed to fix this. Given how I'm built, how do I get what I need out there? Nothing wrong with me. Nothing to fix because I was just looking in the wrong place. Now, getting to value. If you need to fix something, that means it's broken, right? Are broken things valuable? Not really. Need to heal yourself means you need to fix yourself means you're broken. Broken things aren't particularly valuable, are they? So if you feel you need to heal yourself or need to fix yourself or change yourself, guess what? That means you're broken. How can you possibly have value if that's the case? How can you possibly have self-esteem, healthy self-esteem, if you think you're the thing that's broken in this problem? But once those things have changed, now you can create value. But you have to do it in a way that doesn't have to be measured. Because if you're measuring, the answer could always be not enough. Right? So nothing wrong with me, never was. Nothing healed, never was. Good enough as I am to deserve whatever I choose. And I don't have to prove it to anybody, not even myself.
That's powerful, super powerful. And that's where you unlock the true value.
Yeah. And not only that, freedom.
Right.
True freedom is the core truth that you are operating from. Talk about internal locus control, right? You don't need anything out there to be valuable. You don't need anything there to confirm your value. Right? Think about it this way. Do you have to stand in front of a mirror every day and say, I'm a man? No. Do you have to stand in the mirror every day and say, I believe in God? No. Because those things are just true. You don't have to do anything, right? But, so if you wanted to make yourself believe you're a woman, you have to stand in front of the mirror and say, I'm a woman, right? So the things we really have to prove to ourselves are things that are not true. Right? So what happens when you're trying to prove how valuable you are? Well, you're not, right?
So
but what happens? Right. So if you are valuable, if you're good enough as you are to deserve whatever you choose, you don't have to do anything to prove it, right? Can anybody prove that wrong? No. Because the tricky thing about your unconscious mind is it judges true and false based on what it already believes. So if the truth is I'm not good enough, can't prove it wrong. Guess what? If the truth is I am good enough, nothing can prove it wrong.
Right.
Which means your entire world could fall apart, and as far as your self-esteem goes, you're fine. Found out I said I was bipolar and have autism. Didn't find that out until June of 2023 because I had an acute manic episode that ended in a psychotic break. Got arrested, thrown in jail for a couple of days. A year and a half getting my medications on point. I have only really been functional about 4 or 5 months. And as an entrepreneur, so self-employed, that's a bad situation. All good. 75-80% of my revenue. Girlfriend left me, freaking sitting there, not functional half the time. That's the kind of thing that is going to crush somebody if your self-opinion, your self-esteem, your identity is based on what's out there. So it's okay to go through all that stuff. Right? Was it frustrating? Was it a struggle? 100%. Don't get me wrong. It wasn't easy. But it wasn't about me. It was just a situation I was running through.
Right. I love that. It's this. Yeah. Because so many times we just keep telling ourselves this story. It's just a story, man. You
Right.
meet
But
people
the
for the first
problem,
time, they just put it
yeah,
right out. It's like that's your story, bro.
yeah. But the
Not
thing
who
is,
you
you
are.
can't but the thing is, it is.
Hmm?
It is who you are, right? Because that is the truth you're operating by,
Right, right.
right?
So
So
we
it
make it.
is true,
Mhm.
right? Because
Right.
that's the truth you're operating by. So it doesn't matter if it's factually correct. It doesn't matter. That's the truth you're operating by. So it's true.
Mhm.
It's true enough. That's the truth
Right.
that's
It's
driving
your
your life.
truth. That's right. That's
It's
right.
your truth, right?
I agree.
So how do you change that? Well, you can change the conscious one as much as you want. The unconscious one, the subconscious one, that deeper level of mind, you have to change on that level of mind, which means you need to get down there and play with it directly. Because until you do, judging true and false based on our beliefs, how can you change it from the outside in if it's ignoring everything that doesn't match, right? Which is why I open that door with hypnosis, doing psychedelics, doing that stuff to actually get down there and play with it directly. That's how it has to be done. And that's not something you can do on your own. You have to let somebody else guide you through that process. Unfortunately, I wish, dear God, one of the most frustrating things about this process is I knew it was wrong, knew how to fix it. My mind was like, nope, not allowed. I had to hire other people to fix me, even when I knew exactly what was going on, right?
Right. Right.
It's kind of like being a brain surgeon. Like, how are you supposed to operate on yourself?
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
It's kind of brain surgery, just got to be done that way. Just, I wish it was different, but it's not.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if you get in the boat and you want to go to Jamaica, I mean, like you got to get the map from somewhere. Somebody has the map, right? I mean,
Yep.
you're just gonna get in the boat and go, I'll get there some.
Yeah. Good luck.
You might want to find somebody with a map. Yeah.
Yes.
So what about because I can see there's lots of these things in your book, the winner piece, how to end inner conflict and make success inevitable. But how about your daily habits? Tell me about some of the things that you do these days in order to keep some things on track and help you to be the best version of
Why
yourself.
would you need to?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of things we do as far as daily habits are what? Reaffirm the person we want to be. If you're already that, do you have to do any of that? No. Manage our emotional state. If emotions aren't pain anymore, they're just questions, you have to do that. Not necessarily. Right? Here's another interesting piece. When emotions go from pain to questions, not only are you turning away from pain, but you're also teaching your mind to do something interesting. The reason why, think about this. CEO of a company, departments are fighting, can't communicate, can't work together. So what do they have to do? They got to come to the boss to sort stuff out. You're teaching your mind what these questions are and what you need anytime these emotions come up, which means those departments can communicate and work together better. So it's not necessary for these emotions to pop up. It's not necessary for this other thing, overthinking, to pop up into the level of consciousness, because they can solve at a lower level of mind. So the space you get to is kind of like this Zen-like space of mental clarity and peace, general sense of well-being.
Right.
That's where you start the morning. That's where you end your day. You don't have to do anything to maintain it because your mind's doing what it's supposed to.
Right.
A lot of the routines we use are to manage the friction. If there's no friction, you don't have to do that anymore. Right. Which means the meditation takes on something different. What's an exploration of consciousness and higher stuff, right? The journaling, everything else is what? Where do I want to go? What's possible? What's interesting, right? Go in the gym. You're not thrashing yourself to make the emotions go away. No, you're just doing it for the fun, for the physique, for whatever it is, that goal, right? Go into these psychedelic experiences. Why? See what else is possible. Open the doors even bigger. Create even bigger possibility. Not about fixing yourself. No, it's about more. It's about expansion. Right? Because you're good. Think about this. What part of you is you? Right? We think about self as consciousness a lot of ways. We're looking at it through that lens, right? But you got conscious mind, rational mind, emotional mind, instinctive mind. Got your neurochemistry, got your physical body, right? Talk about an emotional body, energetic body, got a soul. So which of those is you? All of it combined, probably more, right?
Yeah.
Or like self as soul is being manifested and expressed in all these different ways, or translated through all these different channels. Well, the game in the energetic space, what? Clear everything out, line it up. Emotional body, clearing out all the junk, line it up. Got a lot of stuff to do with the conscious rational. What happens when you clean up and align your emotional instinctive layers of your mind through this kind of process? Well, now self, soul can express itself more clearly through all these things. Right? All that junk is gone. It can flow more clearly. And identity becomes something very interesting, because we create these identities because we don't like who we are. But if we like who we are, if there's nothing wrong with us, we don't need this anymore. Can you understand the totality of soul? No, it's not possible. Can you reduce that to something that consciousness can understand? No, not possible. So you stop asking who you are and you start being you.
Super powerful. Yeah, I believe that even for myself, in my own experience, I had to start realizing that I'm not this body. Like there's so much more. Like, and then I started to learn that I'm conscious, right? So that's another part of me too, right? Of this experience. So the consciousness is where I started to realize, well, what is that? And I started to realize that consciousness doesn't speak. Not it's always quiet. It's there. It's the observer, right? Michael Singer in the Untethered Soul, right? He speaks about that, like sitting in the seat of awareness, and that helped me. Like it helped to change the game for me too.
Yeah, think about it having two jobs, right? The witness to your experience, absolutely, watching the movie of life play out in real time, but it's also the decider. I'm going that way. I want this. This is the direction I'm going, right? Which means you kind of say, I want this, and you watch the show. If you decide to get groceries, that's the conscious part of it. After that, magic happens. Get up the couch, off the car, draw that, and you're just watching the show play out, right? And in some ways, you can look at consciousness as the screen that, the soul is watching the movie of your life play out in real time and communicating back to the rest of you where the direction is, right? So you're not just a passive observer, you're an active participant, but you're just the boss of the company.
Right.
You do this, and then you let the rest of you do its job to make it happen. The rest of you to execute that plan.
Right. I the way I used to have it, where I heard it, some gentleman explained this so well about, the guy who's steering the ship. He's not listening to the guys in the down shoveling the coal. He's not taking instruction from him. It's like, you're the captain of your own ship.
Exactly.
That's one of the things that we do here at the Omziel Healing Sanctuary. What we do, one of our staples is a breath work with an ice plunge. So the breath work helps to quiet the monkey mind. There's lots of benefits there. And then the cold plunge, I coach guys through 2 minutes of a lot of water with a lot of ice. It's very, very difficult, super challenging, but it quiets that one, like, oh, watch out, be careful. Oh, before you know, it's like, I'm here. Like, it hurts. Yeah, it sucks. Like, it's difficult, but once they come out, like, they're like, oh shit, like, I didn't even know. I'm like,
here's the interesting thing. Okay. If you're the captain of the ship, you're not the guy steering the boat. You're the captain of the ship, pointing the direction, right? You're supposed to be listening to everybody telling you what's going on. You got to look at way up there. Why? Tell you what's on the horizon. Got the guy down there showing this is where we're on the charts. This is what's happening. This is what's happening. This. You're supposed to be listening to that monkey mind. You're supposed to listen to what it tells you. Problem is, you don't like what you hear.
Right.
So you try to tell it, shut up, which means it cannot tell you what the truth of the world is, and it cannot help you navigate things.
I love that.
Right.
I love that.
Every one of our bosses, every one of us has had a boss that just does not freaking listen. As much as you want to tell him, so you just do the best you can without his input. That's what you're doing to the rest of you. Boss that don't listen.
Right. I love that.
So be careful with that, right? And again, like, there's a lot of value in turning the volume down on a sucker, because sometimes it's too loud and you just can't operate. Fine, turn the volume down, but then engage and figure out what truth is. So actually navigate the world from a perspective of truth, because it's trying to freaking help you get to where you want to go if you let it tell you. But sometimes that means allowing something to be true that you don't want to be true long enough to do something about it. And that's the thing. It only has to be true long enough to do something about it.
Yes.
Be brave enough to let it be true. Just let it be true as much as you hate it, long enough to do something with it.
Wow.
So going from point A to point B, you got to start at point A, which means you got to own what point A actually is. Otherwise, you're just living a lie.
Right. I love that. Thank you so much, man. It's such jewels that you dropped, man. And I see that your book is gaining lots of momentum, and I can't wait to sink my teeth into it and gift it to people as well, man, because I can see that you are really on your journey, man. Thank you so much. Where can people find you?
So the book is on Amazon, Winter Peace, How to End Inner Conflict, Make Success Inevitable. It's designed to get you to where I take my clients as best as it can in the book form. It'll walk you through that whole thing, teach you about your mind, teach you how to create that peace between you, teach you how to leverage it, right? Once you're ready to do that internal work, once you're ready to let me do some brain surgery on you, www.ryanthehypnotist.com. for a free 45-minute consultation. We'll sit down, take a look at what's going on, where you've been. I'll tell you why things aren't working the way you want them to, and we can talk about what we need to do to get you there.
Oh, man, appreciate that. Thank you so much, brother. I'm going to put you backstage and close up right here. Don't move. I want to continue this conversation.
Outstanding. Thank you so much for having me on, man. It's an absolute honor.
Brother. Of course. Wow, that's amazing, man. Take advantage of that 4 to 5 minute consultation, man. I'll leave all of the information in the show notes. That way you can tap in with this brother Ryan. Just amazing stuff. Thank you for tapping in. Until the next one.